Hello and welcome to the first 2022 event in the Read Your Mind Teen Author Series, brought to you by the Lewiston Public Library, Portland Public Library, and local Maine bookseller Print. Read Your Mind is a monthly virtual series focusing on teen mental health and wellness, featuring YA authors and community health experts. Our goal is to explore complex and common mental health concerns together through the vehicle of teen books. My name is Harper Chance. I use he, him, and they, them pronouns, and I'm the teen librarian at Lewiston Public Library. And my co-host is Kelly Blue, the teen librarian at the Portland Public Library. We will be running the show behind the scenes and monitoring the Q&A if you need anything. Today, we are joined by Maia Kobabe and Shelby Criswell. Maia and Shelby are both authors and illustrators of graphic novels. We're going to discuss with them how queerness and gender identity impact the mental health of young people. Maia and Shelby will be interviewed by local teens Joey and Kai from MaineTransNet's youth program, and we will be joined by our community guest Chai from MaineTransNet and Outright Lewiston Auburn. Quick content warning. Today, we may be talking about a variety of sensitive topics, including homophobia, transphobia, trauma, and other mental health topics. This is why we ask our community experts to join us. Feel free to direct questions to MaineTransNet if you want. And we also encourage audience members to be gentle with yourselves and leave the webinar at any time if you need to. We will also talk about resources at the beginning and end of this webinar. Kelly, if you want to go to the resource slide. There are a bunch of local and national resources for assistance if you want to chat with anyone. We've got MaineTransNet, Portland Outright, and Outright Lewiston Auburn here in Maine. But if you or someone you know are in crisis or in need of support, we encourage you to reach out to any of these other organizations nationwide as well, Trans Lifeline and the National Youth Crisis Hotline, as well as NAMI Maine and the mental health crisis lines here in Maine. For Portland Public School students, I've been asked to remind you that your school social workers are available if you need anyone to talk to after this event. And Kelly and I are not social workers, but we're teen librarians and we're always available to chat. For anyone watching via Zoom, we will conduct your questions throughout the conversation using the Q&A feature. For anyone on Facebook, we will feel free to add your questions as comments, and at the end, we will do our best to relay your questions to the presenters. This program will be recorded for future use and viewing, so if you want to come back and watch later, you are always welcome. Before we hear from our authors, Chai from MaineTransNet and Outright Lewiston Auburn is going to give us a brief description of what their organizations do, why they're here today, and how you can contact them after the event. So welcome, Chai. Come on back.
Hello. So like Harper said, I'm Chai and I use they, them pronouns. And so I'm the program director for Outright Lewiston Auburn, which is a local organization that operates in specifically this county, Androscoggin County. And we help youth aged 12 to 21, whether they be queer, trans, questioning, and we host right now movie nights, tabletop Tuesdays, study hours, all sorts of things for our youth. And we are the fiscal sponsee of MaineTransNet, which is a statewide peer support network, the largest trans-run trans peer support organization in the country. And our youth programs work pretty much together, which has made it so that we have, Outright as a smaller organization, has wider network of support. And so we, right now, our biggest program is that we run a Discord server that is 24-hour a day support and community for our youth. And, you know, we've gone through some struggles, but we ultimately believe that, you know, having this 24-hour support and community for our youth has made it so that they don't feel nearly as isolated as they did before. And you can find information about Outright LA on Facebook or at outrightla.org. And you can find MaineTransNet on Facebook as well, or at MaineTrans.net. And on MaineTrans.net, you'll be able to find the links to our Discord servers. And, you know, if you feel that you would benefit from being on our Discord server, whether you are a youth, we have a youth specific one that is 19 and under, and then we have an adult one, which is 18 and over. So come and join us if you feel like you belong, because we don't gatekeep, and if you believe that you're trans enough, then you're trans enough.
Thank you so much, Chai. We will provide links to all of these resources at the end and in an email after the program as well. MaineTransNet and Outright Lewiston Auburn are wonderful resources for communities, and we're glad to have you here. So thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. All right. So now I'm going to give you a little introduction to Maia and Shelby. So Maia Kobabe is the author illustrator of Genderqueer, a memoir, winner of an Alex Award, Stonewall Book Award, nominated for an Ignatz Award, and the Great Graphic Novels for Teen List from YALSA. Her work has also been published online by The New Yorker, The Nib, Washington Post, and in many print anthologies. Shelby Criswell is the author illustrator of the brand new comic Queer as All Get Out, 10 People Who Inspired Me. Queer as All Get Out was recently selected for the 2022 YALSA Great Graphic Novels for Teens list, and Shelby is from San Antonio, Texas, by way of Santa Fe, New Mexico. They play the banjo and contributed to the amazing 2020 comics anthology Be Gay, Do Comics, which we have at the library. Our youth interviewers are Joey and Kai from MaineTransNet Youth. And if you all want to come on screen now, I'm going to hand it over to the four of you. So welcome to everyone, and thank you for being with us. If you have questions, remember you can put them in the chat or in the Q&A, and we will get to them at the end of the program. So go right ahead. Thanks, friends.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello.
We have a fair amount of questions for both of you. But I think this is kind of just a general question that I was really curious about. Why is labeling things and putting a name on them so important to us as queer people, like in our understanding of ourselves?
That is a good question.
Should I go first, or do you have immediate thoughts, Shelby?
No, yeah, you go first. I want to think about it.
Okay. I mean, I think for me, it was more important specifically when I was young, specifically when I was a teenager, and it has become slightly less important now that I'm an adult and in my 30s. But I think why I spent so many years as a teen searching for labels was just because I was deeply confused for years. I was questioning both my sexuality, but also my gender identity, but didn't have the word non-binary yet. So at the time, which is like the mid 2000s, I was flopping between like, am I a gay guy? Am I like a lesbian woman? Am I an asexual person? So actually it doesn't matter what my gender is because my gender doesn't need to be in relation to another person like romantically or sexually. And so I would go in these like spirals of like, am I this? Am I that? Maybe I'm this, but does this affect this other thing? And I was just like, the deepness of the uncertainty is like hard to overemphasize. And I think I thought that like a label would help me feel more settled and that I could kind of just like stop going down those same mental rabbit holes over and over of like, who am I? What am I? How am I going to relate to others in this world? And for me, coming across like bisexual was really great because I was like, oh, saying I'm bisexual doesn't say anything about the gender that I am. And so that was really great for me to come to as a teen. Though now as an adult, I mostly just use queer because I like that it is even broader and more open-ended.
Yeah, I same here. When I was younger, I used to try to like sort of pigeonhole it. And like, I think doing that, finding like what I was, who I was, and the label I wanted to use helped me when I would go online, which is where I found a lot of like help in like the early days of the internet of like, hey, I'm a lesbian, I'm gay, I thinking I'm trans, you know. And so finding other people who are like, yeah, I think I also am that, having that common label helped me find my communities. And now even it doesn't matter to me as much anymore to have like a specific label. Like Maia said, I just, yeah, I like the ambiguity of genderqueer and queer because it's kind of all encompassing. Even just like transgender, it means so many different things.
Right. It's such a broad kind of understanding of yourself, and you can understand it in so many different ways.
Yeah, like you don't, one day you could be this and next day you could be that, and you're still queer or you're still trans, you know.
Right. Joey, do you have any questions?
Yes. What lessons did you learn in your research that you think about and hold on to now?
I feel, Shelby, your book was more research heavy. You should go
I was
first.
just gonna say, I think I might have a lot for this. So yeah, in my book, I researched 10 people in addition to doing my own story. And obviously, you know, researching just one person takes a lot of time. But for all these people, I felt like I became their friend. I researched, you know, their life so much that I was like, I feel like I know these people because it feels like part of them is part of me now. And a lot of these people, all the people in the book, they're long gone now. I think the part that just resonated with me the most is that, you know, I have had so much help and so many resources in my life, even when like the language for that we have now for gender and sexuality didn't exist as much. They did that when, you know, there weren't very many resources, there wasn't very many communities, or they had to be hidden all the time. And you know, like, I'm just so grateful and thankful that I have so many resources now to be able to say, even just to look up these people. I have the resources online to like find these people and find more people that are like me or look like me, you know.
So like as you research these people and as you like really looked into them, like you said, they kind of became your friends in a way. What like traits and what things about them really stood out to you?
Definitely resilience, like I said. I think it's just the fact that they were just content with and happy with who they were. Even if they had to hide, they were still content and found happiness in just living life, you know. And I've struggled with that for a long time. And I think finding communities and people that you know, mirror back, you know, our struggles, and that has helped me. Even these people like makes me want to, you know, live day to day and be resilient because they did the work for us, you know.
Right. That's amazing. I loved both of your books so much. They spoke a lot to a lot of stuff that I've been going through, and um just the lessons that you can take away from both of them, I think are really beneficial. And that kind of leads into the next question, which is like, how can speaking up and being open about your experiences, like, how do you see it as being beneficial to the people around you?
One of the things that I often think about is, like, I grew up in California in the Bay Area. I grew up in a very loving, liberal, accepting family. And I always knew for me that coming out was going to be very safe. I knew that both coming out as queer as a high schooler and then later when I came out as non-binary in grad school, I was like, this is not going to threaten my relationship to my family, my friends, my job, my healthcare, my housing. And part of that for me was like, oh, I think I do want to write a book about gender and sexuality and then sort of become a little bit of like a spokesperson or almost like a public figure who, you know, can answer questions about this because I can do so safely. And I feel like because I'm safe to do so, it's not that I'm obligated to do so, but I felt called to it and was definitely thinking like, if I can sort of take the blunt of the questions and maybe like smooth the road out behind me, so anyone else who's coming after me or who is a little bit less safe than I am, if their path can be made like easier by my effort, then I want to do that. That seems really worth my time.
I think you've accomplished that mission pretty well so far.
Working on it.
Yeah, when I read Genderqueer, that book made me really be like, okay, I have to also write a book.
That's what I want. Everyone who reads it should write a book. Yeah.
Yeah, everybody write a book. It's so easy.
It's not easy, but it's worthwhile, satisfying.
No, yeah. I was kidding. No, it is extremely hard. Yes, my family, thankfully, my uncle and aunt are queer, and my mom, I knew that if I came out to her, it wouldn't be a big deal, and it wasn't. But growing up in the church, it was a little bit harder for me to make that choice to do it publicly, not rather than just with my mom or with my friends. But in the end, like, speaking up and living my truth has been the best choice I made for myself, and I don't regret it at all. And even if I wanted to go back to the church one day, like, thankfully there's so many more churches that are open and accepting now than there were when I decided to do that, you know?
Yeah.
So, what was like the thing that really got you interested in writing this book? What inspired you to put those thoughts into the world?
Um, go ahead.
Oh yeah, so I'll go first and then you can go because your book came out more recently. For me, it's interesting. I knew that I wanted to be an author ever since I was quite young, way before I had anything to say or knew that I had anything to say. And like when I was a teenager, I wanted to be an author because I wanted to be friends with other authors. And I would look in the back of books. I was reading mostly like fantasy novels, and I would notice how authors almost always in their author note like thank other writers. And I kept seeing like an author that I liked would thank another author that I liked, and I was like, this means that they're friends. And if I want to also be friends with them, I think I may have to publish some books and then like we can hang out. So part of it was just like I wanted to be in a community of writers. And then later, when I was coming out as non-binary, it was like I kept having these conversations with people where I try to explain like this is what gender means to me, or like this is why it's important that you use my pronouns, or like these sort of things. And it felt like I was never able to fully explain my point in conversation. I would get interrupted, or we'd run out of time, or they would go on a tangent, or just whatever it was. And I was like, I really think I have to sit down and actually write an entire book length like explanation for why this is important to me and what I'm trying to say when I talk about gender. So hopefully that people can read the whole book, and then like we can then have a conversation from there instead of trying to like, explain everything in the book in conversation, because it just takes too long. So the book was really like, honestly, it was like I tried to like a shortcut the conversations about gender, specifically within my own family, my own extended family, and then people who knew me. When I was writing Genderqueer, I was unsure how much people who didn't know me would relate to it. I hoped that they would, but I wasn't sure. So I was really thinking this book is for people who know me in my real life, so that this like coming out are easier. Yeah.
With mine, I kind of just wanted to, because I had constantly been researching people in queer history, and I've always been fascinated by how they survived. And so I just had this like collection of people that I was like, eventually I want to do something with them because I feel so connected to their stories. And I've always gotten tired of people telling me like, oh, genderqueer is a new thing, gender's a new thing. Yeah. So I mean, like, this has been around forever. And like even in like the 1300s, there's a documentation of like intersex people and transgender people, and like people just don't know about it. So I wanted to do just a short collection of some of the people that, I think not only inspired me, but hopefully will inspire other people.
It's amazing. Joy, I feel like I've been taking your questions. If you want to say something.
That is a-okay. I think I might have taken one of yours, so it's it's okay. For both of you, how do you think the gendered experiences you had as a kid affected your journey of self-discovery and then coming out?
That's a really good question, because part of my answer is that I actually felt like I had relatively few gendered experiences until I hit puberty. And I really feel like my childhood up until age 11 was like astonishingly gender free. And I mean, again, I think part of that is growing up in a super like hippie family and going to like Waldorf schools. Like when I was in grade school, like it was very common for, boys and girls would both have long hair, and like would both wear like bright colors and like flowers. There weren't that many times where we were gender divided in classes. It wasn't that, I don't know, I didn't feel like a gendered person at all as a child. And I didn't feel gender was pressed on me or that I was struggling against it. I felt perfectly sort of content in my like just ambiguous child presentation. And then it was like when puberty hit and I was like, oh, this is dreadful. What's this? What? Where did this come from? So I think part of that is me as an adult. I look back on like the first 10 years of my life as this like gender-free, nostalgic childhood utopia. And part of me is like, how can I get back to the like carefree feelings that I had when I was super young, when I felt completely comfortable in my own body and kind of unexamined by the world. I mean, I have to like yeah, I'm an adult now, so it's a whole different life. But like part of me is searching for that sense of like childhood, like freedom and joy and like unconcern.
Yeah, I was assigned female at birth, and so but I never felt like I fit that box. And yeah, and my parents never like forced me to wear dresses if I didn't want to, or if I wanted to cut my hair short, they were fine with it. I was very lucky in that sense. Yeah, I don't feel like my childhood was super gendered, and my whole family, he was like, oh yeah, Shelby wears boy clothes, whatever, Shelby's a tomboy.
Yes.
It's like the old school,
Yeah.
term for genderqueer back then. So I guess, yeah, I've always just sort of been this way. I think in the church though, I did feel a little bit more like I had to wear dresses, or I had to dress up for church in like a feminine presenting way, which was just never my thing. And like we would have these like princess dances, which was just strange to begin with. And they would expect all the girls to come in, wearing a big gown. And I would try, and I was just like, I hate this. Yeah, I feel like that's the only time I really like felt like gender was pressed on me.
How do you think libraries taking away books with queer topics affects queer youth?
Oof. I mean, I think it
It's on for
affects,
you.
yeah, massively and negatively. I've always loved reading, and I was the kind of teen who was in the library like 2 or 3 days a week, probably. I even did some volunteer work there because I was like, this will be the best place to do my volunteer hours. I can just hang with the books all day. And I remember just like, yeah, going through the shelves constantly, like, because I wasn't necessarily hearing about books, especially queer books, in other places. Like I wasn't seeing recommendations online, or I wasn't getting them recommended by like teachers or classrooms. So I would just kind of look for them, and like find things that I didn't yet know existed. And I think, of course, is one of the pleasures of a library is that you can browse and you can find a thing that you would never think to look up or think to buy, even know it was there. And that is the main thing that I fear, I think, when queer books are removed from shelves, is it takes away that sort of like browsing possibility for a teenager who doesn't know what to Google yet, or hasn't heard of an author, hasn't heard of a book that maybe would be super valuable to them. And also, like, it means you can't just like quietly find it and like read it in the library without even like checking out or bringing it home, and just like sort of experience it privately if you don't yet feel comfortable experiencing it publicly.
That's a good point. I totally agree. I'm just going to talk about Magnus Hirschfeld, who I wrote in my book. Was one of the first like sexologists to just research and talk about genderqueer stuff and transgender stuff. And he had this large archive of like 20,000 books of research on this topic, and just anything and everything you can think about with gender and sexuality. And Hitler ordered the Nazis to burn all the books and destroy all of them, and like there's only maybe not even 10% of those books still around today. And so it just not having information is really unfortunate. Because you don't know where to find books, and that browsing opportunity is a very special thing. And I feel like I've learned a lot just by going to the library and finding something random. And I couldn't only imagine if I was 14 and I picked up Genderqueer or my book and would have been like, wow, holy crap, maybe I needed this.
Is also like the fact that they're free is so amazing too. Like I read way more than I could possibly afford. Like if I had to buy every book that I read, there'll be a huge limit. Like I read 110 books a year. I can't buy all those books. I can't store them. Like the fact that you can get them from the library for free and then also give them back to the library and not have to store them, both huge bonuses.
Yeah. Oh, everybody should follow Maia on Goodreads, because you're always finishing books. I'm like, holy crap. How do you finish books so quick? But
a lot of them are audiobooks.
Oh yeah, that's fair. I put a lot of them on my list and I'm like, these are good.
Um, on the topic of like teens understanding themselves through, learning about them through other sources, like more inclusive sex ed and health classes. What do you think? How do you think that could be changed or improved?
It should be
What?
changed and improved.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, just in general.
Yeah, I I mean, so I obviously had a sex ed class as a teenager in like 15 years. So I hope it's better. I fear that it isn't.
It isn't.
And my condolences. But like even though yeah, I was again in a pretty super liberal private artsy education system and actually got sex ed 4 different occasions in 7th grade, 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th grade, I think, each with like a little bit different focus and such. Again, in all 4 of those sex eds, I still think that like queer sexualities only came up maybe like once or twice at the most. And so yeah, I pretty much remember sitting through these sex ed classes just being like, well, I'm never doing any of this, so this doesn't apply to me at all. You know what I mean? Like, so I don't know that I took in honestly some of the information that's like kind of important about, sexual health and STIs and such, because I was just here going me like, I am never having like heterosexual sex, so I don't even need to be here. I should be in the I could just like I could be reading right now, you know. So yeah, I do gosh, I really hope that there are some school districts where they are thinking about the queer and trans youth, and just like the type of sex that you might be having is not like your really like basic like what might be talked about at just like reproduction level and maybe like going into deeper topics, but man, I have concerns.
Yeah. In Texas, and most parts of the South, it's awful. It's very rudimentary, very gendered. I honestly don't remember a lot of it also. But I remember them teaching like abstinence is mostly the way you should go. And, they didn't, provide you with resources if you got pregnant or if you got somebody pregnant. I do remember in 6th grade, one time they separated the boys from the girls. And I went with the girls and they passed us all a brown paper bag and they said, here's a tampon, here's a pad, here's what's going to happen to your body. And, I think that would have been fine to do with everybody, because even if you don't have menstruation, it's still important to learn about, even if you have a partner in the future that does that. I mean, it's not, because it gets like stigmatized.
Yeah.
And, it's not a gross thing. It doesn't have to be a gross thing if you just, I mean, I think
treat it casually and normally, and like, kind of try to remove some of the layers of misinformation.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Overall improvement would be great.
There are a couple of pretty good books on like sex ed for both younger readers and then slightly older readers that are coming out from like the Scarlet Teen website and magazine, and then a couple of them come out from Oni Press, which is my publisher. There's one called Wait What, which is illustrated by Isabella Rothman, and then there's the Quick and Easy Guide to Consent, which is another one Isabella Rothman illustrated, and I feel like there's a third one that I'm just like not remembering the title of at this moment, but like those are all comic books, so they have like good illustrations, and they're also like super good with like ungendered like language around things, and like the illustrations are very inclusive of like body type and like gender and race and age and all of those sorts of things. So like I do feel like there are some good resources coming out now. However, those of course books are also the ones that are on all like the banned book lists, so I hope people can find them, but again, those are the ones that are getting like pulled in conservative areas, so
It's unfortunate.
it is.
I find it remarkable that the access to these things has been so limited. Especially like experience as someone who's gone through like a middle school health class there, and elementary school. Actually, it was just a lot of very, we were younger, but it was very basic stuff. Everyone was split. You never actually got to hear about what was happening. And then in middle school, there was a lot of ignorance.
Yeah.
It was very heteronormative, and a lot of the conversations, my friend asked a question about sexuality and gender on, like, the teacher had us write down questions on a sticky note, and she picked up the sticky note and threw it in the trash.
Oh, geez.
So
Yeah.
And like, what kind of example does that set as you as an educator saying it's just building shame too? It's like some questions are unacceptable, or like some questions are like gonna be literally thrown away because it's not a good question. And like, I also like to the gender dividing of the like if you're gonna talk about say like body parts or whatever, that is like so confusing and hard when you're a trans person, or if you're an intersex person, then you're like, where do I go? Like I might not, I deeply feel like I don't fit into either of these, or like there's information that I actually need and I'm missing out on that it's like happening in the other room. So I definitely agree with the point Shelby made, which is like we should just like all be in the same classroom. We should all be learning about all types of bodies and the
We all
fact that
have a
they're like,
body.
yes, for better or worse. No, just kidding. Yeah, and also like bodies can change a lot over the course of your life. So like the body that you're in at one point may look very different in 10 or 15 more years. So I think it's good to learn about lots of different things.
Mhm. That's a good question.
I had a couple more. I had some very specific questions that I'm blanking on now because I meant to write them down. Um, as far as like experiences with like acceptance from people who seemed like they wouldn't receive it very well. Like, because I know that I've definitely had conversations with people who I would have, you know, assumed because of previous statements, whatever, they would have been more taken aback by my gender and sexuality experience. Have you ever had interactions with people like that that kind of surprised you?
I've been with my partner now for 7 years, and I've never formally come out to my grandmother, but maybe like 2 or 3 years ago, we were one of my cousin was bullying my dog because he's a little ugly. And my grandma said something like, she said something, I can't remember exactly, but it was like very affirming, and it referenced both my partner and I as being in a partnership. I can't remember what she said about our dog. That was irrelevant, but it was very like affirming, and she recognized that like I was with my partner Max and we are a thing, and it just didn't feel weird, and I was very, very taken aback because she's a very religious woman, and you know, when she talks about trans people, it's awful language and you know, stuff like that. So yeah, there's been a few, especially people that I've gone to church with, that have been like, huh. And it's never like overtly like, oh yeah, they'll say like, oh, you're queer, or cool, amazing, love that you're queer. It's just like little things you're like, huh, okay. I think like I've planted a seed in your head, and I think I think you're understanding now.
That makes me think about how so many people who are homophobic or transphobic, it might be because they've just like never met an out queer or trans person, so they can't relate it to a specific person that they know and have a relationship with or maybe care for. And I think it's harder, or I think rather to say, I think it's easier to be really prejudiced when you don't feel like you know anyone in the group. But when you mentioned your grandmother, only one of my grandmothers is living now, and she definitely has never remembered a correct pronoun ever in her entire life, but she did read my book and really enjoy it. And one of the things that she came away from reading is like, she was sort of like, I didn't learn any of this stuff when I was young. And she actually then talked also about like sex ed. She's like nobody taught me anything. And almost a little bit of like, she was almost like reflecting back on her own experience as a young person and being like, I missed out on stuff. Like people should have taught me things, you know? And it was very sweet when she read the book and enjoyed it. And then we had like a kind of a fun conversation about it. So I was like, okay, even if we never get a correct pronoun usage ever, I still feel really good about like the fact that she read it and then thought about her own life in relation to mine. So
Yeah, that she understood a little bit. Yeah.
yeah. Or she took the parts that felt relevant to her, which, you know.
Yeah.
Better than nothing.
Yeah.
Joy, I feel like I did it again. I was like, I have so many questions.
Honestly, I can't think of any right now.
The interesting thing you guys both brought up your grandmothers. I was talking to Mayan a little while ago. She said one day I was going to grow up and marry a beautiful woman, and I said, what if I don't want to marry a woman? What if I want to marry a man? And she said, girls are so much prettier. I don't know why you'd want to do that. And I was like, huh.
Grandma, what does this say about you?
Do you want to think about that for a second? Which I found that really amusing. The thought that even, she's also Shelby, like your community, she's very religious. But it was just such a funny comment to me that she could just, no, women are clearly more attractive than men. And I was like, awesome. I'm really glad you think that.
My partner's mom has also done that before, where she's been like, she's a little bit homophobic, but she'll say things like, oh yeah, that woman's beautiful, and are like, that woman is so beautiful. And I'm like,
What if actually everyone's sexuality is somewhat fluid, it turns out?
I wonder.
Think about it hard enough.
On that note, welcome back. Everybody is welcome to come back on screen. We're going to start transitioning into questions from the audience. So if the audience has any questions or comments, feel free to put them in the Q&A. You can ask questions to Shelby and Maia, of course, but also the young people and Chai, if you have questions about resources, or Kelly and I, if you have questions about libraries and books. We sort of touched on everything in that. So awesome. We've got some questions coming in. So Kelly, do you want to start us off?
Sure. Harper and I just wanted to say again, we're so happy that the discussion touched on the importance of libraries. I love hearing people's library stories and what it was like as a young person to have access to a library. And we just wanted to say that libraries and librarians believe in the free and unrestricted access to books. We believe in the freedom to read and are committed to fighting censorship wherever it sprouts up. And just wanted to let you all know that most libraries should and do have processes in place for book challenges. And if you ever feel like something is being challenged at your school or in your community, ask about these processes. Ask if they have a challenged materials procedure, because they should. And it is rigorous, and it really is in place to protect your freedom to access information. So reach out to a trusted librarian or adult if you ever need help with that. And just remember that libraries are here for you.
Yes. And that the best way to support books remaining in libraries is to be really vocal, because the people who want to remove books, be vocal about your support for books and libraries and folks. Anyway, questions?
Yes. Let me see. All right. So I'm gonna summarize the first questions that we got to say, that we have some adults in the audience with young people in their lives who they are looking to support more and maybe provide resources for, and are wondering what advice you all have for adults who care about the young people in their lives and want to make sure they have access to information and resources.
Well, I can offer some resources. Outright LA has some different posts on our website of different places you can get different types of support from us. But honestly, being supportive is the biggest thing you can do. MaineTransNet has done a survey this past year, and single supportive adult in a trans youth's life is life-saving. They are 50% less likely to be suicidal. So just being in their life is amazing. But you can email MaineTransNet or Outright LA, and I can offer some more specialized support and resources. MTN Youth at MaineTransNet.org is the MTN Youth email, where you can email me at chai, CHAI, at outrightla.org. Or you can message us on Facebook, and we can give more support, more specific support. Like, I know that we get messages all the time asking where to buy binders, where to, like, the best place to find a gender therapist. Like, those kinds of things are less of a question that I can answer like in this format, and more of a like a one-on-one sort of thing. But always happy to answer an email or answer a Facebook message.
Just want to say that we have a lot of questions about all the titles that have been shared, and we're going to be talking about more books and more resources. And audience, just so you know, Harper and I will compile a list of these titles and these resources, and we will send them out to attendees afterwards. So don't worry about that. We will make sure that you get those titles and resources.
Yes, we have all your emails from when you signed up, so we will send an email out to everyone. We love lists. Don't worry.
Oh, we love a book list.
We love a book list
in this
group. Yeah.
One of the things I thought of in relation to the last question is, yeah, just casually scattering some trans and queer books around your home or a safe place where the teen might be able to come, so that they are kind of like passively there, so that the young person can pick them up and read them sort of at their own comfort level and speed. And also, I think if you sort of strategically place them around your living room or bookshelves, then it will also signal to the young person that like you are open to bring up questions or concerns that they have sort of at their own pace, at their own time, and not feel like pressured. And you can explicitly say too, like, hey, like if you want to say anything, like this is, you know, you can say anything, like I'm open to talking about all of this. But I think backing that up with like some actions, like some, you know, like some purchasing some books or making a couple of donations, or having a little, like wearing your own, you as the adult wearing your own pronoun pin, including if your pronouns are the same ones you've used your whole life and you haven't switched at any point, or, you know, putting them in your email signature, just sort of like ways that you can signal like, I am aware of these issues, I'm thinking about them, they're important to me. And then the young person will be like, okay, this is an adult that I can trust.
I got my mother a pin that says proud parent of a trans person, and she has people come up to her all the time that she has no idea who they are, and they're like, I have questions. And so like it just like Maia was saying, like just casual things, like a pin that says, like, I mean, there's a couple of years ago there was the trans flag and the hashtag I'll go with you, was a big thing. But just casually, like without saying, it's one of those things where like without saying that you are supportive, because sometimes they don't want to talk, sometimes they just want to feel the comfort, like that they're comfortable around you.
My mom put a I support my gay child sticker on her water bottle, and she's a teacher at a high school, so it's like this rainbow sparkly sticker on her water bottle that she carries around at the school where she works.
Yeah, I think we like within the queer community, sometimes we're so like, oh, the flags are everywhere, whatever, it's not that important anymore. But like when you leave the queer community, it is important. So these like signals that seem like they're not necessary, you know, like signaling that in an unsafe space for youth is really, I think, crucial. Absolutely.
And shameless plug, MTN is about to do their Pride merch in a couple of months. We just started our the youth are doing a competition for what our merch is going to be, and I'm so excited for Pride right now because our theme is cryptids and mythological creatures.
That's pretty queer. I like it.
We need that merch.
Be on the lookout for that merch in the next couple of months.
And it's you all design it yourself, right? Last year the youth designed them,
the
right?
youth design it, and then the youth vote on which ones they want to use.
The draft art that I've seen so far is absolutely amazing.
Yeah,
man, there's some talented
really
people.
Good.
I love this question because it's for Kai and Joey. What kind of books do you wish were out there? And like, what kind of books do you wish were being published?
Joey, I've talked over you this whole time. Do you want to start?
You have not talked over me, don't worry. Honestly, I think books that would have been compatible, like 10-year-old me who had no idea what was going on in the world. Honestly, something a kid or young teen could read and kind of like figure out what an accepting world looks like, figure out what they can do to make that for themselves, and figure out who they are. Honestly, that and like sex ed, pretty much. Also, like, oh my gosh, the more queer you can make the book, better. Like, throw some like dragons in there, or like, I don't know, cats, dragons, dinos, lizards, whatever, animals. You're good.
You heard it here first. Animals are queer.
Maya, I see you're taking
dragons are
literally
queer.
Writing this down.
dragons are the queers. Actually,
the next graphic novel. Dragons are
there's
queer.
There's this really great Instagram account. It's called Just for Queer Books, and they post like reels and stuff with videos. It's like there's stuff like queer books with popular tropes, queer books with non-binary characters, with trans characters, you know. So I've actually been using that account to find books that I might be interested in. But I think yes.
Yep, instantly we have followed.
It's a really great account. There are a lot of amazing books on there. But personally, as someone who like, you don't see a lot of queer representation, and I feel like for the most part, until I saw, you know, books like Maia and Shelby's, like they always the queer representation is always so minimal. It's like it's the idea of a queer person. It's like how, what was that movie Onward, where the little bit of queer representation was the lesbian cop that showed up for like one scene. Yeah. We need books that are not that. But something that's, I feel like my biggest struggle is we always find good queer books, but it's the ones where like I just feel like so much of the time, if it's good queer representation, it's overdone. Like it's, you know, it's trying to appeal to something that's not like the realistic norm. Like I just want to see queer kids being queer kids without having to be like, you know, I wear a lot of gay stuff all the time, whatever. But I feel like every time they try to make it seem like an inclusive character, they have to be plastered in rainbows and reminding everyone every other sentence that they're gay. Like we need something in between nothing and that.
That's really well said. Yeah.
Or a lot of the early queer young adult books that were coming out when I was like in my late teens were like all what we call now like issue books, right? It was all about the struggle of being queer and coming out.
Yeah.
So there are a lot. Yeah.
We need queer books that aren't about coming out.
Yeah. And they're starting. So ask your librarians or follow the Instagrams. There's a lot of stuff on Bookstagram and Book Talk coming out now. Let's see, there's a lot of questions. So I'm going to try and summarize some. A lot of people asking what your favorite queer books authors are, just like 12,000 questions about all your favorite queer books and authors.
Yeah, Shelby mentioned briefly, I do update everything I read both on Goodreads and Storygraph. So you can follow me on either of those. And I rate a lot of books, and I tag things if they're queer, or specifically if they are written by a trans or non-binary author or a queer BIPOC author. So I have like shelves for all of those things on those two sites.
Yeah, Maia's Goodreads is like a
Old.
and like an anthology of it's like a resource within
Thank you.
own.
I do.
Also, I
maintain
didn't
it
know
very
you were on
carefully.
Storygraph too. So
yes, I have started as of actually
yeah.
January of this year. I'm now mirroring on Storygraph, which
Nice.
is like cool Goodreads that's not owned by Amazon.
Yeah, it's cool Goodreads.
The one downside of Storygraph right now is you can't make an author page. So I am definitely maintaining my Goodreads because that's where I can have an author profile. But I think that author pages are a feature they would like to add to Storygraph in the future. So
Storygraph is impressing me with like at the features they've been adding. If you're a Goodreads person, I encourage you to check out Storygraph. We will also again link all of these pages in our post.
The statistics on there is very nice.
Yeah, the stats. If you like statistics, there's cool graphs.
Oh yeah, Storygraph has much better like data breakdowns and like colorful pie charts and like a breakdown of like the average length and genre and reading pace and all of this. If you're a big
you can
nerd.
also give things like 3.75 stars. Like I love that it's more granular, and you can say like this wasn't quite a 4 or a 5. It was like 3.25.
More nuance
or something like that.
Yeah. But there's so many good queer, like specifically graphic novels right now we're doing great. The community is out. We're writing the queer graphic novels. It's fantastic.
Does everyone want to go around and list one of the recent things they've read or their favorite thing? Anyone who has one. Yeah.
One of my favorite authors is Kathy G. Johnson. So good. All of her stuff, all of her art is very cute.
I'll shout out Beetle and the Hollow Bones.
Oh my god, yes.
Which is really cool, and it's like a teen goblin who has had a longstanding crush on like the best friend who's like a bone witch, and then they meet a non-binary ghost who is like trapped in a mall that's going to be demolished, so they have to like save their ghost friend from the mall before it's like knocked down, and there's like a witch battle. It's very good.
Recently, I just read a book called The Witch King, which has trans male main character, and there's an arranged marriage, and he's a witch, and the person he's arranged to be married to is a fairy, and the witch escapes to the human realm to like get away from all of this, and the whole book is about him like kind of coming to terms with the fact that what's going on in the Fae realm, and like his betrothed comes after him, and it's really great. It's really hard to like concisely put The Witch King into like a 2-sentence summary, but it's really good. It's a duology, and the new one's coming out in a couple months, and I'm so excited.
I also really loved The Witch King so much. If you like fantasy, and then that's a good one where it's like they're queer, but it's not like the plot. There's also fantasy plot happening. Yeah,
I think that the author, what's the author's name? H.E. Edgman, does a really like good job at putting into words like the notion of like body dysphoria.
Yeah.
Because it's something that they talk about, but it's not the main thing. Like he came out before the book happens, and like they talk about the trope of like trans masks wearing oversized sweatshirts, and it's really good. It's really good.
Yeah, it's a really good one. I was gonna say that one, so now my brain is.
If anybody likes manga, there's a really short run. It's just 4 volumes. The 4th volume just came out of Boys Run the Riot.
I want to read that.
Really, really, really good. So that would be my recommendation.
I want to read that. Harper is also very active on Goodreads. I see you adding books on there and things that I haven't read yet.
I feel like we just go back and forth on each other.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Definitely. I'm going to plug a local author from the Telling Room, who's actually a young adult author. Their name is Lee Ellis, and their book is called Bach in the Barn, Bach like the musician. And it's was published last year by the Telling Room, which is a local young writers group. And I really, really loved it. It's like a rural Maine story with a non-binary character and just like them living their life. And it was beautiful. We could talk about specific book recommendations endlessly, so I'm going to give
Absolutely.
us a couple more other questions, but I promise you we will send out lists of books, and if you want to know more books, you know where to find all of us, and we'll send out everyone's contact stuff there too. Why do you think your books have been so controversial?
Queer's in the title.
Yeah, but
Right,
queer is in the title. It's on the cover. I do think that graphic novels are more vulnerable to book challenges in this era of social media than prose novels, although prose novels are also getting hit, partly because you can take a picture of an image pulled out of context and like it can go viral online in a way that it's a little bit harder to get like a picture of like a paragraph of prose text to perhaps circulate. So I think that's part of it. We both wrote graphic novels. And I definitely think that in my book, part of the circumstance was that the midterm elections of last fall, several politicians in various areas, including Virginia and Texas, decided to make book challenges and book bans like part of their election campaign talking points. And I kind of think it was half several people decided to make a talking point and it just sort of went viral. And then half, more concerningly, a very organized effort to like erase trans and queer identities in education, in the education system, in the classroom. And we think we're then seeing the ripple effect of that in some of the very terrible bills that are being added, like the one in Florida, that are sort of like, they're seeing like, how far can we push this? Can we ban the books? Can we ban the conversations? Can we out the students? Like, it's just like, how far can they take this terrible agenda?
Yeah, it's also a lot quicker to read a graphic novel than a whole.
Yes, good
So they
point. It
probably
only takes
sit
like an hour
down.
and a half to
Yeah,
read my
so
book.
they can be like, oh, yeah, because they're not going to read a whole novel and be like, oh.
Yeah. Sometimes they don't even read the whole graphic novel, though. In the
I was gonna
first
say
wave
that.
of challenges,
They're just like, look at this one picture. Yeah.
Yeah.
In the
It's
first
very
wave of
easy,
challenges, so many of the articles about my book, the person who was complaining about it would say, I haven't read it, but, and I was like, I'm not going to listen to anything after that, but like.
And that's honestly one of the first things librarians will say, like, well, read the book. And basically our challenge form is like, write us a little essay about the book. Yeah, write us a book report about why you think this is inappropriate. And like, not to say that book challenges are always, like, sometimes things are are inappropriate in other ways, or in non-factual, but most challenges are unfortunately coming from biased. A lot of challenges come from biased places. I don't know, Shelby, did you want to say anything else about that?
Yeah, Maia summed it up.
It says queer in the title.
Yeah.
Steph from Print Bookstore is adding to our conversation about queer animals that there is a book coming out called Queer Ducks and Other Animals coming out soon. So, we'll get that for the library if you want to have more queer books about animals. I'm going to wrap up real quick. Someone asked about what you two are working on right now. You got anything in the works?
Yes.
Those eyebrows.
Can you tell us?
Yeah. I am working on another book. It's getting so close. I'm like so ready to start pitching it, but I'm also like, it's one of those things where it's like everything is taking longer than I thought. But anyway, it is another graphic novel. It is fictional this time. It is about a preteen questioning gender, sexuality, identity, all of those topics. And I'm very excited because this one is appropriate for younger readers. I think it could be read by 10, 8-year-olds. The main character is 11 at the start of the story and then turns 12 and starts her period. And the sort of like, it goes through, there's a sex ed class in the book, and the sort of like that phase where some peers are beginning to be interested in like dating and these sorts of things, and our main character is like, whoa, what is this nonsense? And I'm excited to be writing it with a good friend of mine, Lucky Srikumar, who is another non-binary cartoonist, and the main character is Indian American, and I'm just really jazzed about it, but it doesn't have a title yet, and it doesn't have any kind of like publication date or anything. I'm just like, but we do have 200 finished thumbnail page draft, so we're well on our way.
That's very exciting. Me and my friend Mark Bouchard are working on a short, like 50-page novella, graphic novel sort of thing, called Leaf Peepers, and it's will be launching on Kickstarter next month. And we have a waiting list y'all can join, so we'll email you once the Kickstarter launches. And it's about two queers that go to the woods on a vacation and are haunted by this weird witch who uses the birch tree little eyes, little notches in it to see them. And it's very exciting. I've never done a horror thing before, so I'm very stoked.
I heard Leaf Peeper and was expecting tourists in Maine, but that is infinitely better.
It is in New England, so.
That's
Really
those
good.
both sound really exciting. We'll keep our eyes open. All right, we're a little over time. I'm going to do one last question before we close, and it's for anyone who wants to answer. What gives you hope in a time where there is so much negativity around books being censored and generally around the LGBTQ rhetoric?
This right here,
So yeah, conversations like this
and learning, yeah, and libraries.
yeah, libraries and the just amazing, like wisdom and activism of teens, and how many teens are reading books and standing up for their rights and being very vocal online about their identities, and then also and their right to access information and education and all of those things, and also how many queer books are like already out and coming out soon.
Yeah, and y'all did such a great job on the questions.
Yeah, seriously, props. Really good moderating. Yes.
Like I working with youth every day, all day, it can be very stressful because, as everyone knows who has been a teenager, it's awful. And like, you couldn't pay me to be 14 again, but like the youth that like these two included, give me so much hope themselves. Like that's like I'm constantly telling my coworkers and like the other volunteers, like the kids are gonna be okay. Like they are better than us already.
But also it's not all on your shoulders. We adults are also trying to like do our part to maintain
we'll always be here for you.
Continuing democracy in this country, so that you can vote and stuff when you get old enough.
Well, that would be good.
Yeah, it's not all on you, but also you guys give us energy. So yeah.
So I'm sorry that we have to wrap up our conversation. Thank you for going overtime and for all of you for the great discussion. We'd like to thank Maia and Shelby for joining us today. We would also like to thank our co-sponsors at Print Bookstore. If you're interested in purchasing copies of Maia and Shelby's books, they are available for purchase on the Print website. So support your local booksellers. If you're watching this from another state or another town, support your local bookseller and buy Maia and Shelby's books. They are, of course, also available at the library, as are most, if not all, of the books that were mentioned today in the discussion, which we will be sending out to you in a follow-up email. For those watching up on Zoom, Harper is going to put up a quick poll. Harper, do we have a poll or are we skipping that? Maybe let's—
I have it somewhere. I don't know if I can screen share and poll at the same time. So here are resources. Right. We will also send these slides out and along with everything in the email. And we will have more Read Your Mind coming up, and the recording will be on YouTube. Let's see if I can get the poll up, because the poll will give you, no, poll is gone. Poll didn't happen. We have free copies of the books. So any of you who attended heck with the poll. Any of you who attended will be entered into a raffle for a free copy. We have 4 free copies of everyone's books left over. So we will send a raffle and anyone and people will get them. But also if you don't win, you can get them at the libraries or at the bookstore, your local bookstore.
It's worth it. They're great.
Yeah.
They are really good.
Thanks also to Kai and Joey and Chai for being here. You contributed so much to this conversation, and having youth be here to interview these authors is like the best part of this series. So thank you so much. Harper,
That's
do you have
awesome.
anything you want to add before we sign off?
I think that's it. Thank you
Okay.
to everyone for being here, and we will post the recording ASAP.
Awesome.
you.
Thanks,
Love you, stay
everyone.
safe.
Thank you,
Bye.
everyone.
Bye,
Bye.
everyone.